still remember that evening as if it just happened yesterday. The restaurant was busy, customers were enjoying their meals, and the sound of laughter and clinking dishes filled the air. Then, suddenly, my eyes froze on the door. She walked in. My wife, or rather, the woman who once called herself my wife. She looked around, smiling with her friends, completely unaware of where she had just stepped. My restaurant, my place, the same cooking she used to mock. Today, she had to pay for it. You see, there's a story behind every dish served here. A story of pain, humiliation, and eventually sweet revenge. And if you're listening now, don't forget to support me with a like and subscribe, because this journey is one that deserves to be shared. When I was younger, I had a passion for cooking. I loved experimenting in the kitchen, adding spices the way my mother used to, trying new recipes, dreaming of opening my own restaurant one day. But to my wife, it was nothing but a joke. You, a chef? She would laugh. Men should focus on real work. Who's going to eat this nonsense? At first, I smiled and ignored her, but the more I cooked, the harsher her words became. At family gatherings, it got worse. She would mock me in front of everyone. My husband thinks he's the next big chef, she'd say sarcastically, but he can't even make a proper omelet. Everyone laughed, except me. Do you know what it feels like to be ridiculed in front of your own family? In our culture, respect at home means everything, and her words cut deep, but I stayed quiet, holding the pain inside. One night, after I had spent hours preparing a special dish, she took one bite, spit it out, and threw the rest in the trash. That night, something broke inside me. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "One day, people will stand in line to eat my food, and you will regret every word you said." She laughed in my face, saying, "Keep dreaming." That laugh stayed with me. It became the fire that pushed me forward. From that moment, I worked in silence. I started cooking secretly for neighbors and friends. They praised my food, encouraged me, told me I had real talent. I saved money, took cooking classes without telling her, and practiced late into the night. I sacrificed sleep, comfort, and even peace at home, but I never stopped. Then the opportunity came. A friend asked me to cook for a wedding buffet. I poured my heart into every dish, and the reaction was unbelievable. People came to me asking who made the food, complimenting flavors I had created with my own hands. That was the first time I felt truly seen. Slowly, more requests came, and step by step, my dreams started to take shape. Years later, I finally opened my own restaurant. At first, she mocked it, called it a street cafe, said it wouldn't last. But customers kept coming. Day after day, the restaurant grew, and soon it became one of the most popular spots in the city. And me, I no longer needed her approval. My food spoke louder than her insults ever did. And now, here we were. She sat down with her friends, still not realizing whose place this was. When she saw me in the chef's coat, managing the restaurant with confidence, her smile disappeared. Shock filled her face. Her friends praised the food, saying it was delicious, and I could see her shame grow with every word. When she finally approached me, trying to smile, she said, "So, this is your restaurant?" I looked her in the eye and replied calmly, "Here, everyone pays for the taste they once mocked." She froze, embarrassed, while I walked away to greet other happy customers. And that was the sweetest revenge. Not anger, not shouting, just quiet dignity. The same hands she mocked built something she could never take away. So, my friends, never underestimate someone's passion. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe, because I have many more stories where karma serves the final dish. And remember, respect the dreams of those you love, because one day you might be paying the price for underestimating them. I'll never forget the moment I saw her walk into my restaurant. She was dressed elegantly, laughing with her friends, holding her head high like she always did. She didn't know yet. She didn't realize that the place she had just entered, the restaurant everyone in the city talks about, belonged to me, the same man she once mocked and humiliated. And I thought to myself, isn't life strange? The same cooking she used to spit on, today she has to pay for. But let me take you back, so you understand how we reached this point. And please, my friends, if this story touches you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It means a lot when our stories are shared. From a young age, I loved cooking. My mother used to say, "The heart of a family is the kitchen," and I truly believed that. Whenever I prepared food, it wasn't just about taste, it was about love, about creating something that made people smile. But to my wife, it was nothing more than a joke. She would look at me and say, "What are you doing wasting time in the kitchen? Cooking is for women. Go do something useful." At first, I laughed it off, thinking she didn't mean harm. But little by little, her words became sharper, colder, meant to break me. I remember one night I proudly served her a dish I had been practicing for days. She took a spoonful, frowned, and then threw it straight into the trash. "You call this food? It tastes terrible," she said, shaking her head. "Stop embarrassing yourself." Those words cut deep. You know, in our culture, a man's dignity is tied not just to his work, but to the respect he receives at home. And every insult she threw at me was like another wound. At family gatherings, she would laugh at me in front of everyone. "My husband thinks he's a chef," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "He can't even boil an egg properly." The relatives laughed with her, and I sat there in silence, pretending I didn't care. But inside, my heart was burning. Tell me honestly, if you were in my place, wouldn't you feel the same? If you do, share the story with someone who might need the reminder. One evening, after she threw away another dish I made with all my heart, I couldn't take it anymore. I looked her in the eye and said firmly, "Mark my words. One day, people will stand in line to eat my food, and you will regret every word you said." She burst out laughing, her voice echoing in the house. "You, a chef? Keep dreaming." That laugh haunted me. It didn't break me, it fueled me. I started cooking in secret, for neighbors, for friends. The way they praised my dishes gave me hope. I saved money quietly, worked extra hours, and even attended cooking classes without telling her. Every sacrifice was a step closer to my dream. And slowly, my dream took shape. First, I cooked for a wedding. People couldn't stop talking about the food. Then more events came, and soon I had saved enough to open a small restaurant. She mocked it again, called it a street cafe, but people kept coming. Tables filled up, and my restaurant grew into one of the city's favorites. And then, that day arrived. She walked in, laughing, with her friends, until her eyes met mine. Her smile froze on her face. Her friends praised the dishes, not knowing the chef was the man she used to humiliate. When she finally approached me, embarrassed, she said, "So, this is your place?" I smiled calmly and said, "Yes, and here, everyone pays for the taste they once mocked." Then I walked away, leaving her with nothing but silence and regret. My friends, that was my sweetest revenge, not through anger, but through success. So if you ever feel mocked for your dreams, remember my story. And if you felt the pain, the struggle, and the satisfaction with me, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because life always serves justice, one way or another. I still remember the night she walked into my restaurant. She came with her friends, dressed elegantly, laughing loudly as if the whole world belonged to her. She didn't realize at first. She didn't know that the place she had just entered, the restaurant people travel across the city to visit, belonged to me, the same man she once mocked, humiliated, and belittled in front of everyone. Life has a strange way of turning tables. The food she once called garbage was now placed in front of her, and this time, she had to pay for it. But to understand why this moment felt so powerful, let me take you back. And as I share this with you, if the story touches your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe, because these stories remind us all how life balances justice. From a young age, I had a passion for cooking. My late mother used to say, "The taste of food carries the soul of the one who makes it." Every time I cooked, I remembered her words. To me, cooking wasn't just about filling the stomach, it was about filling hearts. But to my wife, it was nothing but nonsense. She would look at me with disgust and say, "You? Cooking? Men should focus on real work. Do you want people to laugh at us?" At first, I stayed silent. I thought maybe one day she would see my dream the way I saw it. But instead, her mockery grew sharper with time. At family gatherings, she would humiliate me in front of everyone. "My husband thinks he's a chef, but he can't even fry an egg." Everyone laughed with her, and I sat there, pretending not to care. But inside, I was burning. You know how in our culture, family honor is everything? Being disrespected in front of relatives is like being stripped of your dignity. I swallowed my pride, but inside, I promised myself I would prove her wrong. One night, I prepared a dish I had been practicing for days. I poured my heart into it, hoping maybe this time she'd taste it and see my effort. She took one spoon, made a face, and then spat it out. "This is disgusting," she said coldly. Then, without hesitation, she threw the entire dish into the trash. At that moment, something inside me broke. I looked at her and said, "One day, people will stand in line to eat my food, and you will regret every word you said." She laughed in my face. "You, a chef? Keep dreaming." Her laugh was cruel, and it echoed in my mind for years. But instead of killing me, it fueled me. From then on, I worked silently. I started cooking for neighbors and friends. They encouraged me, told me I had talent. I saved money in secret, worked long hours, and even took cooking classes without telling her. Every sacrifice became a step closer to my dream. My first real chance came when a friend asked me to cook for a wedding. I stayed up all night preparing every dish with love and care. When the guests tasted the food, the compliments poured in. People asked, "Who made this?" That was the first time I felt my dream wasn't just mine, it was real. Slowly, more requests came. I saved enough to open a small restaurant. At first, she laughed again. "This little cafe? It won't last a month," she mocked. But people kept coming, day after day. The restaurant filled, and little by little, it became one of the most loved spots in the city. And I no longer needed her approval. My food spoke louder than her insults ever did. And then, the day of justice came. She walked into my restaurant with her friends, laughing, proud, as always. But when her eyes met mine, her smile froze. She realized. Her friends praised the food, completely unaware of the history behind it. She lowered her head, embarrassed, as the very dishes she once ridiculed won the admiration of everyone around her. She came to me quietly and said, "So, this is your restaurant?" I looked her straight in the eye and replied, "Yes, and here, everyone pays for the taste they once mocked." Then I walked away, leaving her in silence. My friends, that was the sweetest revenge. Not shouting, not anger, just success. And that's why I share this story with you. If it touched you, if you felt my journey, please like and subscribe, because one day, you too might see life serve justice in the most unexpected way. That night is burned into my memory, like a scar that never heals. I had spent the whole day in the kitchen, preparing a dish I had been practicing for weeks. I wanted it to be perfect, not just for myself, but to prove, even if just a little, that I was capable of something. The smell filled the house. The colors of the spices reminded me of home, of my mother's kitchen, of warmth and love. I placed the dish gently on the table, waiting for her to taste it. She walked in, glanced at the plate, and sighed. "Again. You wasted your time cooking again?" she muttered, her tone filled with irritation. I smiled nervously and said, "Just try it, please. I've worked hard on this." She picked up a spoon, took a bite, and then her face twisted as if she had tasted poison. Without hesitation, she spat it out, pushed the plate away, and said, "This is disgusting. You'll never learn." Then, in front of my eyes, she picked up the plate and threw it straight into the trash. My heart sank. Do you know what it feels like to pour your soul into something, only to see it thrown away like garbage? It wasn't just food she threw, it was my effort, my hope, my dignity as a man. I clenched my fists, holding back tears. For years, I had endured her sarcasm, her mockery at family gatherings, her cruel jokes about my cooking. But at that moment, something inside me snapped. I looked at her directly, my voice shaking but firm. "One day," I said slowly, "people will stand in line to eat my food. They will praise the taste you mock today. And you will regret every word you've said." She froze for a second, then suddenly burst into laughter, a loud, cruel laugh that echoed through the house. "You? People standing in line for your food? Don't make me laugh. You can't even impress your own wife. Stop dreaming and start living in reality." Her words were like knives. In our culture, a man's honor is often tied to the respect he receives from his wife and family. That night, she stripped me of that respect, laughing at my dream as if it were worthless. But what she didn't realize was that her laughter planted something inside me. A fire. A determination stronger than anything I had felt before. Her mockery no longer broke me. It pushed me. Every insult became fuel. Every laugh became a reminder that I had to prove her wrong. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, her words ringing in my ears. Stop dreaming. But instead of stopping, I made a silent promise to myself. I would dream louder. I would work harder. And one day, she would see the man she underestimated rise higher than she could ever imagine. My friends, when someone mocks your passion, when they belittle your efforts, don't let it destroy you. Let it shape you. If you've ever felt that burning anger of being laughed at, if you've ever had someone throw your dreams in the trash like mine, then you understand my pain. And if you do, share this story with someone who needs hope, because life has a way of turning pain into power. That night was the breaking point, the moment I decided that I would never again seek her approval, never again let her laughter define me. That night, the seed of revenge was planted. And though she thought she had crushed me, she had only awakened the man who would one day rise above her, silently, proudly, with nothing but the taste of success. So, stay with me, my friends, because this is only the beginning. And if you feel my story in your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe, for sometimes the best revenge isn't shouted in anger. It's served on a plate. After that night, after the cruel laughter and the plate of food thrown in the trash, I made a promise to myself. I would not give up. I would not let her words be the final truth about me. If she couldn't see my worth, then I would prove it to the world, even if I had to do it in silence. So, I started practicing in secret. Late at night, when the house was quiet and she was asleep, I would sneak into the kitchen. The sound of the knife against the cutting board was my companion, the smell of spices my only comfort. I experimented with recipes, adjusted flavors, failed dozens of times, but with every failure, I learned. Sometimes I'd bring food to my neighbors under the excuse of extra portions. They tasted my dishes with genuine curiosity, and their eyes lit up. "This is delicious," one would say. Another would ask, "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Those words were like medicine for my wounded heart. They reminded me that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the fool my wife believed me to be. Slowly, word spread in the neighborhood. A family asked if I could prepare a dish for a small gathering. Then another neighbor asked for help with a birthday dinner. I didn't ask for money. I just wanted people to taste what I had created. And every compliment, every smile at the table gave me strength to continue. But it wasn't easy. I worked long hours during the day, trying to save every coin I could. Then at night, I cooked. Sometimes my eyes burned from exhaustion, but my hands kept moving. While others spent their evenings relaxing with family, I was standing in front of a stove, sweating, fighting my own doubts. I even enrolled in cooking classes without telling my wife. I told her I had to work overtime, and she believed it. Those classes became my second home. Surrounded by strangers who shared the same passion, I felt alive. I studied every detail, the right cut of meat, the perfect balance of spices, the art of presentation, and when the instructor praised my work, I felt a pride I hadn't felt in years. There were nights I came home with aching feet, my clothes smelling of garlic and onions, my hands scarred from burns, but I didn't care. Every scar was a reminder that I was building something bigger than myself, something worth all the sacrifice. Of course, there were moments of doubt, nights when I looked at my reflection and wondered if I was chasing an impossible dream. But then I remembered her laughter, the humiliation in front of family, and the pain in my chest. That pain became my fuel. You know, my friends, sometimes life tests us in the harshest ways. People closest to us might become the ones who doubt us most, but that doesn't mean we should give up. If you've ever felt underestimated, if someone has mocked your dreams, then you understand what I felt in those long nights. And if you do, share the story so others know that silence doesn't mean defeat. It can mean preparation. Bit by bit, my reputation in the community began to grow. People asked me for advice on cooking, others wanted to learn from me. Imagine that. The man who was once mocked for not being able to fry an egg was now teaching others how to balance flavors. I still didn't tell my wife. To her, I was just wasting time. But I knew the truth. I was building my foundation, brick by brick, dish by dish. I was carving a path toward the future she said I would never have. And deep down, I knew the day would come when she would see it with her own eyes. The day when the man she mocked in private would be praised in public. The day my sacrifices would finally speak louder than her insults. My friends, stay with me, because what came next proved that no amount of humiliation can destroy a determined heart. And if you feel the weight of this journey, don't forget to like and subscribe, because trust me, the story only gets better from here. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. After months of practicing in silence, cooking for neighbors and close friends, I thought my journey would remain hidden, just a quiet passion in the background of my life. But then came the moment that changed everything, the opportunity that turned my dream from imagination into reality. One evening, I was sitting with an old friend. We were sipping tea after a long day, and I had brought him a small dish I had prepared earlier. He took one bite, then another, and then he looked at me with wide eyes. "Brother," he said, "this is amazing. Have you ever thought about cooking for an event? A wedding, maybe?" I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "Me? Cook for a wedding? Don't joke like that. Who would trust me with something so important?" But he was serious. He leaned in and said, My cousin's wedding is next week. The family is looking for someone to prepare part of the buffet. I'll recommend you. Trust me, your food deserves to be tasted by more people. At first, I hesitated. Fear gripped me. What if I failed? What if everyone laughed, just like my wife did? The thought of embarrassment in front of a large crowd terrified me. But then I remembered all the nights I'd spent alone in the kitchen, perfecting recipes, sweating over the stove, dreaming of this very moment. Maybe this was the chance I had been waiting for. So, I agreed. The following week was one of the hardest of my life. I worked like a man possessed, shopping for the freshest ingredients, grinding spices by hand, tasting and adjusting until every dish carried the perfect balance of flavor. My small kitchen became a battlefield. Pots clanged, oil splattered, and my hands grew tired, but my heart beat with excitement. When the day of the wedding arrived, I stood in the hall, arranging my dishes on the long buffet table. The scent of roasted lamb, fragrant rice, and spiced stews filled the air. Guests began to gather, curious about the food. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought people could hear it. Then it happened. One guest took a bite, then smiled. Another followed, and soon the entire line of guests was talking about the food. I heard words like delicious, unforgettable. Who cooked this? My friend, standing proudly beside me, pointed in my direction. He did. I'll never forget the look on people's faces when they realized it was me, the quiet man no one thought much about. Strangers approached me to compliment the dishes, and some even asked for my number. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, respected, and valued, not for what I earned or owned, but for the talent in my hands. Do you know what that feels like? To finally taste the sweetness of recognition after years of humiliation? My friends, if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had someone laugh at your passion, then you know exactly what I felt that night. And if you do, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes life gives us just one chance, and we must grab it with both hands. After the wedding, the calls began. Families wanted me to cook for their gatherings. A neighbor recommended me for a birthday dinner. An old acquaintance asked if I could prepare food for a small business event. One opportunity led to another, like sparks turning into a fire. Each event taught me something new. I learned how to manage larger portions, how to present food beautifully, how to keep consistency, even under pressure. With every gathering, my confidence grew, and so did my reputation. At home, I didn't speak much about it. My wife still thought I was wasting time. She didn't realize that the seed she had tried to crush was now breaking through the ground, reaching for the sky. That wedding buffet was more than just a meal. It was the turning point. The moment when my dreams stopped being a secret and started becoming reality. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Stay with me, my friends, because the path ahead wasn't easy, but it was worth every sacrifice. And if my journey inspires you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the best part of this story is still to come. After years of sleepless nights, cooking for small events, saving every extra coin, and carrying both hope and humiliation in my heart, the day finally came. I opened my own place. It wasn't a grand restaurant with golden chairs or shiny chandeliers. No, it was small, just a modest shop on a busy street, with a few wooden tables and the smell of fresh bread and spices, welcoming anyone who passed by. The first morning I stood inside, turning the key in the door, I felt my chest tighten. This was mine. My kitchen, my recipes, my dream turned real. The walls were plain, but to me, they were filled with the stories of every struggle I had endured. When my wife came to see it, she shook her head and laughed. This is nothing but a street cafe. Don't get carried away. It will probably close in a few months. Her words stung like knives. I wanted her to share my excitement, to believe in me. But she didn't. Still, I stayed silent. I knew deep inside that success speaks louder than arguments. The first weeks were hard. Some days only 3 or 4 customers came. I would smile, serve them with all my heart, and pray they would return. And slowly they did. A man who tried my lamb stew one day came back with his brother the next. A woman who bought bread for her children told her neighbors about it. Soon, word began to spread. I remember one afternoon, the restaurant was nearly full. The sound of spoons clinking, people laughing, and children asking for more rice. It felt like music. I stood behind the counter, pretending to wipe a plate, but in truth, I was holding back tears. This was more than food. It was dignity. It was respect. Every returning customer reminded me of something. People don't care about titles or wealth. They care about sincerity, about effort, about taste that comes from the heart. And my food carried all the nights of pain, all the mornings of sacrifice, all the prayers I had whispered when no one was listening. Do you see, my friends, how life works? The same passion people once mocked became the reason strangers smiled at me. If you've ever had someone laugh at your dream, let this story remind you, don't give up. And if my journey touches your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs a little hope. As weeks turned into months, the little street cafe, as my wife called it, became something else. People started saying, let's go eat at his place, as if it was a landmark. Taxi drivers mentioned it to passengers. Even shopkeepers from nearby streets came for lunch. My name, once ignored, now traveled through conversations across the city. My wife noticed too. She no longer mocked the restaurant, but her silence said more than words. I didn't need her validation anymore. For the first time in years, I could look in the mirror and see a man of worth, not the failure she once called me. One evening, as I closed the restaurant after a long day, I sat on one of the wooden chairs and looked around. The tables were empty, but the air still carried the warmth of laughter and the smell of food. I whispered to myself, you did it. And in that moment, I realized honor doesn't come from what others give you. It comes from what you build with your own 2 hands. My restaurant was not just a place to eat, it was proof that patience, faith, and hard work could turn a man's deepest humiliation into his greatest pride. So stay with me, because this story is not just about food. It's about life, betrayal, and the sweet taste of victory. And trust me, the ending will leave you satisfied, the way a good meal always does. It was a busy evening at the restaurant. The place was alive with the sound of clinking spoons, the smell of grilled kebab, and the laughter of families sharing meals. I was moving between the kitchen and the tables, making sure every guest felt welcome. My heart was light that night. Business was good, the customers were happy, and for the first time in my life, I felt I was exactly where I was meant to be. Then, the door opened, and fate decided to play its trick. She walked in. My ex-wife, the same woman who had once mocked me, crushed my confidence, and left me when I had nothing. She wasn't alone. She was with two of her friends, dressed elegantly, laughing as if life had always been kind to her. At first, she didn't notice me. To her, this was just another restaurant, a place her friends had recommended. I stood there in my chef's coat, clipboard in hand, managing the floor with confidence. I could have hidden, but why should I? This was my home now, my creation, my pride. They sat down at one of the corner tables, and I told one of my waiters, serve them with extra care. My hands were steady, but inside, my heart beat with a strange mix of anger, satisfaction, and anticipation. When the food arrived, her friends began to praise it loudly. "Ya Allah, this is amazing," one of them said, tasting the lamb. "Where did you find this place? The chef here has magic in his hands." I watched her face closely. She nodded politely, pretending to enjoy, but I saw her eyes narrowing with curiosity. Then, as I walked past their table, one of her friends called out to me, "Excuse me, are you the owner? We must thank you personally. This food is incredible." I smiled and replied, "Yes, alhamdulillah, this is my restaurant." And then, it happened. Her eyes met mine. For a moment, her face froze. The laughter disappeared, replaced by shock, then shame. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. Her friends didn't notice at first, they were too busy eating, but I saw it, the trembling in her hands, the way her lips parted with disbelief. She whispered, almost choking, This is your place?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Yes, this is what patience built. This is what you once called a foolish dream." Her friends turned to her, confused. One of them laughed. "Wait, you know him?" She forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed her. She muttered, "Yes, I know him." The irony was heavy in the air. Here she was, sitting in the very place she once said would never exist, eating the food she once belittled, surrounded by friends praising the man she had abandoned. I didn't raise my voice, didn't seek revenge with words. I didn't need to. The sight of her sinking in her chair, trying to hide her embarrassment, was enough. Her silence was my victory. Her shame was my justice. I turned to her friends and said warmly, "Please, enjoy. You are always welcome here." Then I walked away, leaving her to drown in the weight of her own choices. That night, when I finally closed the restaurant, I sat alone for a moment, letting the memories wash over me. The betrayal, the tears, the nights of hunger and humiliation, all of it had led me here. And now karma had served its dish, hotter than any meal I could prepare. My friends, if you've ever been hurt, betrayed, or made to feel small, remember this. Life always finds a way to return what you deserve. Patience and hard work never go to waste. And when your time comes, your victory will speak louder than any revenge. So if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal and justice. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well. The evening was calm. The restaurant buzzing with the sound of plates, laughter, and the smell of freshly baked bread. I was standing near the counter, checking the orders, when I noticed her again, my ex-wife. She had finished her meal with her friends, but she lingered at the table, restless, glancing in my direction every few minutes. Her friends were relaxed, laughing and talking, but she sat there stiff, clearly battling with her own thoughts. Finally, when her friends excused themselves to step outside for a moment, she stood up and walked slowly toward me. For a second, I almost thought she would turn back, but she didn't. She stopped right in front of me, her eyes avoiding mine, her voice trembling just enough for me to notice. It's really good food," she said, forcing a smile. "You've done well for yourself." I simply nodded, saying nothing. My silence pressed heavier on her than any response. She hesitated, then added softly, "Do you think maybe you could give us a discount? Or maybe the meal could be on the house? You know, for old time's sake?" Her words hung in the air like smoke, choking both of us. For a moment, memories rushed back. Her laughter when she called me a failure, the way she walked out when I had nothing, the nights I spent alone, rebuilding myself. And now, here she was, standing in my place, asking me to give for free what I once bled for. I looked at her steadily, keeping my tone calm, my face unreadable. Then I said slowly and clearly, "Here, everyone pays for the taste they once mocked." Her eyes widened. She froze, unable to reply. Those words, so simple, cut deeper than anger ever could. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't a curse. It was truth. And truth carries a weight heavier than revenge. Her face turned pale. She looked around, hoping no one had heard, but a couple of waiters nearby had paused, sensing the tension. She lowered her voice. "You don't have to be cruel," she whispered. I leaned forward slightly, meeting her eyes with steady calm. I said, "This isn't cruelty. This is dignity. Everyone pays here, even you." She bit her lip, her pride collapsing in front of me. For a moment, I saw the woman who once believed she was untouchable, now reduced to silence by nothing more than words she couldn't escape. She reached for her purse, fumbling with the bills, her hands shaking as she placed the money on the counter. When her friends returned, they laughed and joked as if nothing had happened, completely unaware of the storm raging inside her. She tried to join in, but her voice was thin, her laughter hollow, and as they left the restaurant, I watched her walk away with her head lowered, the weight of shame pressing down on every step she took. That night, as I sat alone after closing, I replayed the moment in my mind. I hadn't shouted, I hadn't humiliated her in front of her friends. I had simply spoken the truth, with calm, with pride, with the strength that comes only from patience. That was my revenge. Not fire, not insults, but dignity. My friends, if you're listening now, let me tell you something important. Sometimes you don't need to raise your voice to make someone hear you. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is quiet, calm, and powerful. It's when life itself delivers the justice you once prayed for. If you felt this story in your heart, if you've ever tasted betrayal but dreamed of justice, don't forget to like this video, share it with those who need hope, and subscribe for more stories like this. Because, trust me, life always knows how to balance the scales. The restaurant was alive that night, full of people, full of warmth. Every table was taken, families enjoying their meals, children laughing, the smell of grilled meat and fresh bread filling the air. For me, it wasn't just a restaurant. It was the dream I once carried in silence. The same dream that people mocked, the same dream my ex-wife once called a waste of time. She sat there, at the corner table, her eyes wandering across the room. She saw the walls decorated with photos of happy customers, the workers moving with energy and respect, and the long line of people still waiting outside to get a seat. This wasn't just success, it was proof. Proof that the man she abandoned when he was down, the man she called weak, was the same man standing tall in front of her now. She tried to smile, but her smile was weak. Her friends chatted happily, praising the food, asking for more bread, but her voice was absent. She kept sneaking glances at me, as if waiting for me to look back, to say something, maybe even to forgive. But forgiveness wasn't what she saw in my eyes. What she saw was something far heavier, dignity. When her meal ended, she stood up slowly, her footsteps heavy. She came closer to the counter where I was standing. For a second, the whole restaurant seemed quieter, at least to me. Her face carried regret, but she couldn't say the words. She didn't have to. Regret speaks louder than any voice. She placed the money on the counter, her hands trembling, and whispered, "You've done well." I simply nodded. I didn't need to answer. My silence was enough. In our culture, we are taught that silence at the right time carries more weight than 1,000 words. And that moment, my silence was the justice I had been waiting for. She walked away slowly, her friends still laughing, not realizing the storm inside her heart. But I noticed. Her shoulders bent, her head lowered, her steps heavy with shame. She left not just the restaurant, but a piece of her pride on that floor. And as I turned back to the restaurant, I saw it. The families smiling, children eating with joy, people calling the place their favorite. That was my victory. Not revenge filled with anger, not loud insults. My victory was simple. Success. I stood there watching everyone eat, and a thought came to my mind. Never underestimate someone's passion. The same hands you mocked can build an empire. My friends, if you're listening to me now, remember this. Life has a way of returning everything, good or bad. Betrayal, humiliation, pain, they don't last forever. If you stay patient, if you keep working, if you hold your honor, one day the same people who doubted you will sit in the crowd watching you shine. And trust me, when that day comes, you won't even need to speak. Your success will speak louder than anything else. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in dignity, patience, and justice, then please like this video, share it with those who need strength, and subscribe for more stories like this. Because stories aren't just words, they are reminders. Reminders that in the end, truth always wins, and karma never forgets. That night, as the restaurant filled with laughter and the sound of clinking glasses, I realized one thing. I didn't just serve food. I served proof. Proof that life always gives back what you put in. And as she disappeared into the night, carrying her silent regret, I knew justice had been served.